Okay, hello, Liz. Hello, Fred.
Hello.
This is a quick kind of like intro video to sort of back up and just talk about conscious business fundamentals. Liz was nice enough to offer to kind of moderate this conversation. So, Liz, why don't you take it away?
Absolutely. Thank you, Fred, for making the time to start with. It's really appreciated. I raised this to Sam because I was noticing in the groups that I'm facilitating that there was a gap between what they had learned before and your model as it was coming in. So what I've been working on is breaking it down and showing the similarities. Building rapport is always there. You must get to a contract. There's a problem resolution phase, etc. You do have to do some pre-work, and then you have to have some action and what worked, etc. There's comments there. It's how you get there that makes a difference. And what you've brought in is this widening the gap and also victim player. But you bring in so much more that I think is being missed by the participants as they're going through. In the sense, part of it that I know is an example is the pre-work that you do. You're not just about showing up to the session, and it's not just the experience, it's everything about how you prepare yourself mentally and how you do that on a daily basis without coaching. Would you mind just talking a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, I'm happy to talk about it. I don't mind. I'd say all my life it's a preparation for the coaching conversations. There's meditation to be open and emptying myself so I can really receive the other person. All the study that I have done to listen beyond the words, to understand what the person is saying through the words, but not directly with the words. So I'm always listening for the context in which the words make sense. I would say that's my preparation for, well, the meetings we're having, because I don't know what people are going to present. If I'm doing a regular coaching conversation with a person, I review my notes. I will think about my arc of conversations with the person, the dynamics. But really, the most important is the presence and the what's called abduction. Abduction is different than induction or deduction. Abduction is what Sherlock Holmes does. Abduction is what must have been the case so that what the person is saying makes sense. So it's trying to understand what else is going on. So if a person says, I'm having an issue, like, I don't know, I had a coaching conversation this morning. My wife says I don't listen to her. So I ask, okay, tell me what happened. And the person describes, this man describes the story where he was, I mean, I thought he was listening. So I did a role play, and then it turns out the whole structure was the wife was saying, I'm right, you're wrong. And if you listen to me, you will do what I tell you. And that's asking for obedience, not for listening. I mean, if the only way you can prove that you've listened is by doing what the other person tells you, that's a total double bind. So in a role play, I simply said, well, he was playing his wife. And I said, is it possible for me to listen and not agree with you? And that was a total pattern interrupt. He just couldn't do the role play because that was the point, that obedience is not listening. Now, how do I know that? Well, because I have a pattern in my mind that I've developed over many years, and that's what conscious business is. The material is a kind of a map of how conversations go right or go wrong. And when something doesn't align with my map, I inquire more. And then in 2 or 3 questions, I get an essence of an opportunity to make the conversation better. I'm not saying I'm right, but it gives me a clue of where to ask more questions. And that's what I call abduction. What must be the case in the context so that what the person is telling me makes sense. And then I work with that. That's how I use the material, and that's my preparation. It's fairly technical, I have to say. I've written a couple of books because there's tools and methodologies that are the background of the coaching. This is not only process coaching. When I coach, I'm using a lot of content that allows me to intervene. It's like a doctor that knows anatomy. I know anatomy, so when I get X-rays, I can see, okay, this bone is fractured. But how do I mean, I can see an X-ray and I won't see anything. And a radiologist will see the same X-ray and will say, okay, you have a fracture here and a crack there. And I'm like, how do you know? I said, okay, look at that. And there's like a hairline little thing there. I would never see it. But the radiologist is trained to be able to detect those things. That's my image as a coach. I'm trained to detect those out of tune parts of the conversation, and then they sound out of tune to me. So I inquire deeper, and then I discover opportunities to make them better. That sometimes looks a little too, how would I say, too rushed, because I'm not asking too many questions, but that's because, well, I have the map. So, and I'm always worried about being wrong. So I never say this is what's happening. I'll propose, and if the person goes with me and say yes, exactly, then I'll work with that. But as a hypothesis building, the structure and methodology that I have is allowing me to go faster than if I had to ask a lot of questions.
What's beautiful about what you've expressed is it's the foundation of you. It's a lot of learning, a lot of discernment that you have gained through the years, a lot of mental through meditation practice, centering practice, and a lot. I love the image of a map and how to put the pieces together, because by the time you're coming into the session and widening the gap, the map is there, the capacity to discern and everything is there, and you're able to find the nuances pretty fast because of all this background. Let me take it further. So you have this beautiful map you see immediately. Some of the feedback that I've gotten is you're so doggone fast, and we understand why now, that it appears that the fear is that you're so direct. There's a fear of being that direct with the client, for one, because they may shut down, there may be wrong. Yes. Could you expand on that?
Yeah. Well, that adds another dimension, which is critically important, and it may not come across. It's funny, throughout my life, whenever I had an issue, it was never with the person that I was working with, but it was with the people that were watching me work with that person. So in a workshop, for example, I would do a piece of coaching with someone, and I never had an issue of a person being frustrated or angry or hurt afterwards, never. But the people that were not engaged in the direct, like the tunnel of communication between the other person and I, from the side would be like, whoa, if you said that to me, that would upset me or enrage me, because it's too direct. And maybe that's not something that shows, but I know that I feel I can be very direct with permission if the person feels the love behind the directness. If I'm coaching and it's clear that's in their service and there's no ego. I mean, I work with very powerful people, and I tell them, look, I'm the dumbest guy in the room here. I can't compete with you, and I don't want to. My goal is to make you better. So you're talking to me because I can delta your performance a little bit, and that's all there is to this. I'm never telling you what to do or anything, and I'll ask you some questions. And I use a Vince Lombardi quote that Vince Lombardi was a famous football coach. I've readjusted it, but it says something like, a coach is someone that shows you what you don't want to see and tells you what you don't want to hear, so you can become who you want to be. And I find that that's a beautiful statement. It's like, my job here is to help you become who you want to be or what you want to be. That's our job together. What you see and what you hear, what you already know, well, you already know. So that's not going to add a lot of value. So I'm here with you to challenge you in ways that you would not challenge yourself. And it could be in a very loving and supportive manner, or it can be in a more direct manner. But the challenge has to be loving. So part of my meditation and my practice and my preparation is to be in that space of service. And I'm ready to drop it at any time. If someone says, "Oh, why are you talking to me like that?" It's like, I'm trying to help you. And if this is not working, I'll drop it. Like, what did I say that troubled you? I apologize. I have zero ego in proving I'm right. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care about being right. I care about helping the person grow in a way that they couldn't do it without my help. That's my value added. If not, what am I doing? So that's the part that maybe it's not visible, and maybe because we're doing role plays and it's so quick, it's hard to demonstrate. If we had an hour to do a coaching session, you would notice the care and well, hopefully the love. I mean, that's why people continue working with me. If they got upset, they wouldn't work with me. But I tell people, I'm here to work for your soul, even at the risk of upsetting your personality, because it's your personality that is blocking your soul from shining through. Or another analogy I use is I'm like the Detective Columbo, and I'm working with the criminal and the victim in the same body. So, Detective Columbo is Peter Falk's character, and one like, explain to me like I'm a 5-year-old. This is my mentor. So I have it here. He's my hero. So I work like that, and I'm saying, okay, there's a part of you that is perpetrating a crime against another part of you, and it's the part of you that's blocking your growth, and the part of you that wants to grow. Because at the end, I'm just working with you. It's never the external world. It's how you respond to the external world. So there's a part of you that wants to grow, and another part that's attached to, well, I'm doing the right thing, the other person should change. And I'm trying to help the part that wants to grow and undermine slightly the part that is more comfortable without growth. So it may come across as I'm being too harsh or too direct. And if I am, I'll tone it down. Nobody has told me that yet. But it's an artifice of the fact that we have 10 minutes or 7.5 minutes instead of an hour. And I'm trying to add value to the group. But I'd be happy to have like the 10 minutes. It just be boring. I think most people would be like, okay, but what happened here? Because I will spend 10 minutes creating coherence and empathy and just connecting with the other person before we jump into the issue. Here, we're not doing any of that.
So
Go
ahead.
I was just going to point out that we have a couple 20 minutes sessions that you did with Jaylene that I'm going to plug here, because it's not an hour, but you can definitely see the interaction is a bit more protracted.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to make sure that students have access to those. So
please, yes.
Absolutely. Let me take my thought here a little bit further. So part of what's happening, again, as you're both saying, is the directness is showing up more. And that capacity, that caring side and the caring for the person's soul may not be showing up as much in these very protected sessions. What would happen? Let's suppose somebody has a trauma response to that level of directness and is therefore not able to respond to you at that point. There is nothing you would know about it, and therefore may just shut down.
Could be. I don't know. That's very abstract. It's never happened to me. Not that I know. So could it? I mean, I don't want to speculate on something so abstract. If you want, we can do a quick role play. How would a person shut down? Like, give me a scenario and I'll tell you. I'll show you what it would be. Let's play it.
Let's play something like that. You've given me feedback on something very directly.
No. Let me give you the feedback. Tell me what you want me to give you a feedback, and then you react to that. Because if not, that's the essence. Why?
Okay.
Yes.
Having trouble talking to my boss. Just there.
Okay. Let's start the conversation, and I'll be direct. But so just say I have an issue. I can't talk to my boss or something.
I have an
What's
issue.
your
I can't talk to my boss. They're just. He never listens, and I'm just so frustrated. I've tried, and I got to tell you, nobody in the company is listening to me. I don't know. I'm just ready. I don't know if I should quit or what. I just feel so helpless.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you should quit either. That would be your decision. But the possibilities, you might be participating in the dynamic where people don't listen to you. Because if it's all the other people, there's nothing to do. I mean, you either live with that or you quit. Do you think you're...
What do you mean I'm participating? It doesn't make any sense. No.
Well, you're speaking to them and they don't want to listen.
I'm struggling with them as they don't want to listen.
How do you know? How do you know that they
them.
don't want to listen? How do you know? What are they telling you, or what are they doing?
Sometimes they're just crossing their arms and just sitting there. I don't feel acknowledged. I don't feel validated.
Yes. Yeah, that's very painful. I understand. So what would you like to do?
I would like to feel heard.
Yeah, and you would like to feel heard because they are really listening to you. I mean, you can't change your feeling. I don't know how to change your feeling. If they're not listening to you, I don't want to manipulate things so you feel heard when they're not hearing. I mean, you want them to hear what you have to say and then feel heard, correct?
Yeah, I want to manipulate what they're saying so that I feel heard. I don't know about that. I want to manipulate that. I don't know. I do want to feel heard, but I don't get what you're saying is they are who they are, and therefore anything other than that is me wanting them to change.
No, I'm saying they are who they are, and right now the way you're interacting to them is giving you a result that you don't want. They are not going to change because you and I have any conversation. This is just between you and I. So if you want the system to change, the change will come from you, or it won't change.
Okay.
So are you willing to change? I mean, that's as direct as I would get. I don't know what you're doing. I would say now, okay, let's do an example. I'll talk to me. And then let's say you talk to me and you say you're bossy.
Yeah, okay. I would say you're very bossy.
I would tell you, you know what, Liz? If I were listening to you like this, I would feel trapped because you're telling me what to do. And that sounds bossy to me. I have an inference that may sound bossy to other people, and that's why they don't want to listen, or why they cross their arms, because they're protecting. So push back. What's the trauma?
Yeah, I was going to switch. Yes, absolutely. The bossy, it would come through because I'm going to have an emotional response to you being bossy. And therefore, it's about that. With a trauma response, the person will, sure, Fred, sure, will stop speaking, won't say anything, and will just maybe agree without really, they stop listening to you.
Could be. I mean, I can only say it has never happened to me. So yeah. I don't I don't know what I would do, honestly.
Yeah. Fundamentally, and I just want to go here. The question becomes, as a coach, is your role to deal with somebody else's emotion. We can all trigger someone. And it's, can you trigger them? Can you work with them? You may not know you've triggered someone. At the end, is that your responsibility as a coach or not if they don't raise it? There's not, what can you do in a scenario if you don't know what you don't know?
It would be very hard for me not to notice that a person has been triggered. If you stop talking or say, okay, so what's that about? We're having a conversation and now you're leaning back, you're crossing your arms, or saying it's okay. That doesn't sound like you're engaged with me. Did I say something that upset you? I would ask you. I would say, no. Okay. I mean, I don't know what to do because I'm noticing something, but you're saying it's not true. I still notice it. But what would you like to do now? And the person will say, well, I don't want to have this conversation. I'm so sorry, but you're right. If you don't want to have the conversation, we shouldn't have it. And I would end there. I mean, but I tell you, I've been doing this for 30 years. It has never happened. Not once. Not that I know, maybe I triggered someone, but they masked it so well that I never found out. Could be.
It could happen. So basically, as coaches, we need to look at all the cues that are out there. Look at the body language, look at the silence, look at everything else that there is, and to the best of our ability, pick up on all of these to continue the conversation.
100%. And I'm not trying to invite people to be like me. I have a style that I've developed over a long time. It's not necessary that people are so direct. It's your level of comfort on helping the other person. I would simply try to balance the need to maintain the coherence in the conversation with the need to mismatch the coachee to show something that they wouldn't see alone. If I'm so pleasing that everything is copacetic, the person is suffering. The reason why we're having this conversation is that they aspire to accomplish something that they're not able to. So there's a dissatisfaction inherent in the context of the conversation. So my value is to provide a perspective that adds to what they're doing so that they see something that they wouldn't see otherwise. If I'm just always pacing and I never move to lead, I'm not using the empathy or the rapport to show them something. Of course, if I walk in and say, hey, you don't know what the hell you're doing, well, that's not meaningless. But if we have enough coherence in the conversation and trust for me to be able to show something, it will come through as a loving invitation rather than as a hard challenge. That's what I meant when I said, when I can remember, it hasn't happened in a long time now, but I remember when I started working that usually the people that were upset or troubled were not the people that I work with, were people watching from the side. And I realized that, oh, it's not enough to build rapport with the person that I'm working. I also have to build rapport with the rest of the room to have the permission to do something like what I do in a way that doesn't freak people out. And that's a lot harder. But that's what happens in a large group setting. We're talking about one-on-ones here. That's why I'm being less focused in managing the room as a whole.
Excellent. One question or one thought, if I were to continue with this, is part of the philosophy of how they've been taught so far is the idea that the is the concept that maybe the coachee has the answers within them, and therefore it's in asking questions and moving them through there that they arrive at their own actions and what they should do. One of the contrasts. Exactly.
I don't believe that. I don't believe
exactly.
that.
That's beautifully. That's where I want you to go next.
Exactly. That's the key difference. I remember sometimes in coaching classes, someone would ask me, okay, if you were coaching yourself, how would you help yourself solve the problem? And I don't have words. I was like, if I knew how to coach myself, do you think I'd be talking to you? I mean, I'm talking to you because I have no clue about what to do. Now, you can teach me in a Socratic manner, or you can teach me in a more direct manner, but you're teaching me, you're giving me material and tools so I can address a problem more effectively than I did before. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. They are process tools. So for example, summarizing what the other person said and checking that I understood you correctly. That is content. That is a tool. If you ask me, don't you think you should listen to the other person? And say, yeah, but they don't think I listen to them. Well, how about, how could you show to them that you've listened? I don't know. I'm just told them, I heard you. No, but how does that work? No, it doesn't work. It's so clunky and it takes forever. Say, okay, look, it's not enough that you listen. You have to prove the point. Let me give you a suggestion on how you can prove that point. Why don't you summarize the essence of the message the other person gave you? And then you check, did I get it? I said, oh, brilliant. Yeah, I can do that. Okay, let's try it with me. I'll tell you something, summarize what I said, and ask me, did I get you? Am I understanding properly? And then we'll try it. And the person will not be able to do that effectively for a few times. Either they will go too long, or they'll miss the point, or they'll add something. So that is a tool, and that is a tool I teach people in the middle of the coaching session. I don't know how to get the person to discover that by just asking them, oh, you have the answer inside. They don't have the answer. If nobody, I mean, I only know that because somebody taught it to me. This is not a natural thing that people would do. It took many years of psychologists, interventionists, organizational theories to come to this, like, oh, wow, this would be a technique, but somebody discovered, and there's theory behind why that happens and what's the value and so on. I learned it reading books, studying courses. I don't think it's reasonable to expect a coachee to find it inside them. I didn't have it inside me. Somebody taught me that. Or speaking first person. Instead of saying, you should do that, say, I need this. Would you be willing to help me accomplish it? Now, speaking in first person language as opposed to you need, this is my need. Are you open? Or distinguish an opinion from a fact. Most people don't know. So I just, the process coaching is effective in building rapport, but I don't think it's the most effective one. I love Carl Rogers, to give you an example of a person that has positive intent and the regard and listening to the other person and supporting them is transformational. I completely agree with that. And that is a core part of any coaching process. I don't think that disqualifies teaching the other person how to make a request. Because if they feel, oh, people always let me down, how are you asking? Well, I tell them it would be nice if I got this. I said, okay, what if you said, I asked that you do this by this date. Are you willing to do it? I said, well, I never say that. Exactly, that's why you're failing. Why don't you try this? Do it with me. Now, they're not going to learn that unless I tell them. I mean, or it would be super clunky. I would need 20 minutes of questions for them to discover, and it's bullshit because I already have an idea of what I want them to learn. Why not tell them instead of pretending that they're discovering it inside? If there's trust between us, I'd say, hey, here's a tool. Do you want to use it? Or a negotiation. Think about your interest instead of your position. Or ask the other person what really matters to them. I've read books. I never discovered that inside of me. So I don't know how I would lead someone to discover that inside of them. It would be like learning mathematics and say, oh, you have the mathematics inside, why don't you think about Pythagoras and see what comes to you? No, I mean, somebody has to teach you this. It's the square root of the sum of the squares. That's what's going to give you the triangle size. No, sorry.
I love your passion.
I'm not, and I'm not disagreeing that the process part is important. I'm adding something to it. It's not either or. And we're trying to help the coaches at Better Up be more effective. And I've demonstrated a modicum of effectiveness by doing what I do with pretty senior people. So that's my contribution to the mix. I'm not asking anybody to do what I do. Samantha asked me to share what I do so that people could take what's useful. And that's hopefully what I'm doing in an inspirational manner. but not as a prescriptive manner.
What I love is so much, not only your passion, but they've learned some summarization. My English is not so good there. But they have learned that what you do is you apply it right away, not so much reflection, to move it, to get value right away. So you're saying, put it up front in your toolkit. The heck with that being one of the things you do. Just bring it in, use it all the time so you can move further.
It depends on the rapport. If I feel the problem is that people here are being very generous, so we build rapport quite quickly. We did one scenario where the person was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, but in 3 or 4 minutes we were totally aligned. And in my practice today, people feel, I don't know, they just smelled me and they feel like, yeah, I don't have an agenda. This is not an ego battle. I'm trying to help you. Do you want to take advantage? And I have very little investment in whether they say yes or no. And if someone says no, it's like, okay, I'll help you get out of this. Don't do the coaching. Let's find a way that, let's do a coaching session on how you can opt out of the coaching, because you shouldn't do it. If you don't feel comfortable, you shouldn't do it. And with you, of course I'll help you. I mean,
it's in the service of the other.
And then people are like, oh, okay. This person is not trying to manipulate me in any way. So
yeah, no, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
No, it's just gorgeous. It took me to the next thing that kind of ties in the way you're summarizing. There is almost, and because of the background you have, sometimes there's this idea of pure coaching, and yours has a flavor sometimes, so people say, of a little bit of consulting mixed in there and a little bit. What are your thoughts there?
Very, very powerful. Very good. And I can totally understand why people think that, because it's true. I operate in 3 levels at the same time. When a person brings me a problem, I don't help the person work on the problem. I want to help the problem work on the person. So my real objective is to let the problem teach the person how to deal with the problem. But we do it by dealing with the problem, just like a problem set in math. I don't know if you remember when you were studying mathematics in school and you get the exercise. But the goal of the exercise is not to solve the exercise. The goal of the exercise is for you to learn mathematics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if my son, 5-year-old, comes and says, Daddy, I don't know how much is 5 plus 7. You know, I can't count with my fingers. Well, I'll tell you what the wrong answer is. The wrong answer is 12. That's the wrong answer. I don't give the answer to the person because that would prevent the learning. I would sit with my child and say, okay, 5, and how much can you count? And maybe 5 more is 10. Okay, and how many fingers are you left? I don't know. I would work with them to find a way that they get to 12. But I would teach them to think mathematically. And that I would teach. It's a process teaching. It's not a content. I don't tell you the answer is 12. Now stop bothering me. I hope I'm never doing that in any coaching session. So I do work with the person on the problem, allegedly. That's why it looks like consulting. But the reality is I'm trying to help the person learn the tools that will allow them to deal with this problem and any other problem in that class. Because the important thing is that the person learns to deal with the class of problems and they're equipped in the future to better deal with them. But that's not even the end of the coaching. The real coaching is that when they know the tool, they can't use it. It's like, you know the diet, but you still eat the wrong thing. Why? Why? You know you shouldn't eat sugar, but you eat sugar. Or you know you should go to the gym and you don't go. That's the real coaching, because that is, who are you that, knowing what you have to do, decide not to do it? Why don't you summarize when people tell you things? Why don't you check that you understood them? Why don't you propose instead of telling them what they ought to do? Because you have a mental model of who you are, and that self-image is blocking you from using the tool. So it's never the tool, it's the tool user. The tool is trivial to learn. The tool user is hard to change. But the impetus to both learn the tool and reflect on the tool user comes from the importance of the problem. So we are working on the problem all the time, but that's a smoke screen. We're never working on the problem. We're using the problem to learn the tools and reflect on yourself. That's what's in my mind. I may not be able to do it, but that's what I offer. I don't know how to solve the problems. Like, I'm always the dumbest guy in the room. Seriously, I don't understand almost anything of what people are talking about. Financial services or artificial intelligence or microchip engineering. I don't know anything. How can I help people solve the problems they have? Because they have problems of relationship or personalities or self-awareness. That I know about, but that's a process knowledge. But I apply it. I'll help them. Yeah, we have a chip manufacturer that's not delivering. Okay, let's work on that. And I have no idea about supply chain in microelectronics, but I don't need to, because I know that there's a request, there's a promise that should have taken place. The promise was not fulfilled. Was it clear to all parties the promise was not fulfilled? Are people apologizing properly? What is a proper apology? How can you demand a proper renegotiation of a broken commitment? That's a lot of theory about how people resolve issues interpersonally. And sooner or later, it's either intrapersonally or interpersonally, but there are no problems without people. If all humanity disappeared tomorrow, there'd be no more problems in the world. There are no problems. Nature operates, the universe works. Physics, natural laws are functioning. What's the problem? Well, the tsunami is perfectly in tune with the laws of nature. It just killed 100,000 people. But the problem is we don't want 100,000 people to be killed. And we suffer and we lost family members. That's the problem. So the problems are always about the people having the problems. There are no problems without people. And that's what gives me the trust that these tools can add value no matter what the problem is, even though I have zero knowledge of content. But let me emphasize, I don't help people solve problems. I help problems work on people. That's what I mean.
Hence, you're back to their soul, because you're working on people and you're working on their essence and what it is that they believe, their mental models that are creating the problems for them.
Exactly. But if I went in and say, tell me what's in your soul, be like, what the fuck are you talking about? The people I work with, I can't just say, but they bear their soul. After 15, 20 minutes, they will show me what their soul wants. And it's shocking. It's very touching. If you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, people will bear their souls. Speaking about the problem with supply chain, their fear, but I don't want to talk to the why, because they intimidate me. Okay, what are you afraid they might say? Well, I might say, okay, and why is that scare you? Well, I don't know. And I don't know what they'll say, but they'll say something very personal very quickly. That's what we're coaching. We're not doing a full coaching session, and that's why people don't see the whole nature. We're talking about the first 10 minutes of a coaching session in the luminary classes. But I'd be happy to do one too. I mean, we could do a longer session just as a model of what would that be, and maybe people would learn from that. No problem. I'd be super happy to do it.
I'll leave that up to Sam.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. We can talk more about that for sure.
Yeah.
And and I'm tying it because everything you've said, we tie back to all the pre-work you've done, all the learning, all the continuous reading, all your discernment, all your ability to see, all again in service at such a deeper level. So the consultancy isn't really that, but you can see that. And an opinion that may sound like an opinion or advice may not necessarily be that unless it really is. That's another comment that's come up. It sounds he's giving advice. He is literally, although he's giving ownership to them, it's like he is giving advice. What would you say there?
It can be interpreted as advice. I'll tell you what my mental model, and I may be deluding myself because I'm very opposed to advice. I'm brainstorming with the person on what we might do in the face of a problem. Like, we're a team. Imagine the three of us have a problem and we're trying to solve a problem and we're making proposals. And you'll say something and I'll say, what about this? And what if we do that? And then Samantha might say, I don't know if that will work for me. Okay, what do you propose, Samantha? This. And we're like brainstorming. I feel it's not generous as a coach to withhold some idea that could help the person. I understand it's risky because it can come across as me telling the person what to do because of the authority of the coach.
Mhm.
I played a little close to the line, but I know I would have to see my videos. I don't feel inside that I'm giving advice. I feel more I'm working with the person, like we're colleagues. I'm part of them. I'm in Team Liz, and you and I are working on, okay, how is Liz going to deal with this issue? And you have an idea and say, oh, I love it, but what if we add this to that idea? I say, oh, that would be great. Okay, let's try it. Test it with me and see how it goes. I say, that didn't sound so good. This part didn't quite touch me. And you say, okay, how do we? And we're like prototyping together. That's how I see it, and it may come across as too much. In which case, I need to tone it down. I mean, the people I work with don't have a lot of patience, and maybe it's a professional deformation because I'm working with people who don't hire me to work on their souls. Let me put it like that. They want the answer, and I have answers, but it's not relevant. It's like telling my son 5 + 7 = 12. I don't want to give them the answer. I want to struggle with them through the problem with some support, so that when they get the answer and they can't apply the answer, they start asking, what's going on with me that I know what to eat and I yet eat the wrong things? Because it's not what you eat, it's what's eating you. That's the difference. It's what's going on with you, what's gnawing at you that prevents you from taking care of yourself. That's the real conversation. But we can only get to that conversation when you know what to eat. If you think you're eating healthy by eating a lot of sugar and fat, well, it's a non-starter. You have to say, okay, accept that sugar and fat are not good for you. Yes, I accept, I have high blood pressure, I'm out of shape, whatever. Okay, this is a diet that will help you. Do you believe in that? Yeah, I see the theory, I read the book, the biochemistry, all that. Okay, and then you come the next week and nothing has changed. I say, well, what happened? Oh, I can't do it. Well, why not? Well, I'm just too tempted. I like sweets. Okay, now we talk about that. But that's the real conversation. Now we say, you know what's good for you, and you're not able to implement it. Let's look into what's stopping you. And now the soul conversation starts, but it starts on the basis of effective action in the future. I don't get people like coming to a therapist that say, I want to work on myself. I don't get people that say, I want to grow, or I need a spiritual teacher. I'm not a spiritual teacher. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a coach, and people call me as a coach because they have to struggle with challenging problems that they don't know what to do about. So I earn the right to work on the deeper things by helping them solve the more superficial things, even if it seems a little performative rather than more spiritual.
I would also offer that as far as advice giving is concerned, that might be another just result of them being 10-minute sessions, because you do talk about how it's a brainstorming, prototyping conversation, and there's really only time for 1, maybe 2 suggestions to build off of within 7 to 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
just want to point that out too.
Yeah, it could be an artifact, but just like we're doing this, I'd be totally happy to use another of our meetings to do a longer session, maybe 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes, and we could find one of the people in the program that would be willing to do a long open, not in any content, just like, here's a challenge I have, and then I could show what I do when I meet with people for a longer time. I'd be
That's a great
super
idea.
happy. Yeah, I'd be.
All right. Well, I think we need to wrap it up for today. You
Very
have
good.
both been super generous with your time. I very much appreciate that. I think this is going to be really helpful for people. So thank you, Liz, for bringing up and organizing this. And thank you, Fred, for your openness to change up our schedule for today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All
Yeah,
right.
and thank you for showing us your way of thinking and how you got to be here, how it is that you make the decisions, why your coaching style has evolved. I think that'll make a huge impact. Just my guess from seeing what I'm hearing in the group. So again, and thank you, Sam, for listening.
It was my
Very
pleasure.
good. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.